Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marty and Jaden Show. We have just watched the first 2 episodes of the Three Body Problem adaptation by Netflix. And if you are subscribed to the channel, you're a regular watcher here, you know we just finished our review of the book, The Three Body Problem by Liu Cixin, I think. And
Sounds
we're ready
to
to go into the actual series version of this and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what things changed potentially from the books, what's different, maybe some things in the adaptation are even better than the book.
Yeah.
Let's dive in.
Like we said, we watched the very first 2 episodes of this. We've still got more to go. Excited to watch more, but we want to get our first impressions of it.
Raw reactions to the first 2 episodes of the series.
Totally. And Jaden, what is your raw reaction?
My raw reaction is that is not as intense as I read the book.
Really?
Not even close.
Wait, so the show is more intense.
The show is more intense. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I think in general, I am one who shies away from darker themes. In general. So when I read the book, I didn't have that lens, right? Mm-hmm. As whoever the director was of this series was a little bit more, let's showcase a little bit more of the intensity, the darkness. And there is a lot of that in just the concept of the book in general. And they added a lot. I'll give you an example. And this is going to be pretty spoilerific because if you haven't seen the series, you're going to learn some things about it. If you've read the book or you've seen our analysis of the book on the channel, that will probably make a lot more sense. But things like the dehydration of bodies in the Three Body Problem game inside the series, so creepy. I just like I don't like that.
Honestly,
was that the girl who dehydrates?
Yeah.
Was she a little kid in the book? There's no way. I do not remember that.
I don't remember there being a little kid.
I would have remembered if it was a little kid. I think it was just another person.
I think there was just one person that he talks with. It's, by the way, when I say he talks with in the book, it was a he that was the main character. So that's why I'm saying he.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Honestly, although I think it's a fine difference. Like the character doesn't matter too much.
Let's talk about characters really quick. And I do want to say there was a second person.
We have to talk about that dehydrate scene though too eventually. But
we will.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So diving into the main character premise, there are like way more characters in the series than there were in the book.
Yep.
There's only one guy who does most of this stuff.
Yep.
He does the nanoparticle stuff.
Yep.
He plays the game by himself.
Yep.
And he is like...
He's freaking out about seeing the numbers.
Yeah, all of that. Yep. Whereas now we have the nanotechnology researcher, Augie, who sees the numbers. And the numbers, how they appeared, was different than in the book as well.
Yeah, because it
was a camera.
I mean, that could have... I think he does see it in his vision, though,
First, he started with a camera.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's so weird. This camera's printing these numbers. And then he tried on a different camera and a different camera. And all the cameras were printing the numbers. And then he started seeing them in his vision.
You're right.
But it's like that progression. But you don't have that much time in a series. So... do we hate the fact that they changed it a little bit to make the numbers appear a little more creepy, a little more intense? No, I don't hate that.
No, honestly, I thought that was a cool way of doing it to make it more intense for like the viewers.
It was intense.
And they actually even made it more intense by having the countdown be very soon. Because in the book, if I remember right, the countdown is like lots of days in the future.
Yeah.
Like it still has like, it's not... I think it was like 40 days or something like that. But this is like, you've got 2 days left and you don't want to know what happens at 0. And you're like, oh no.
And then, so the characters, Augie and Jack and Lin or Jin.
I honestly did not remember any of the character names.
I think they're all that same person.
Pretty much.
So the girl who first plays the game, who gets it from the girl Vera, the girl who committed suicide, who's also not named Vera in the book.
Yep.
Because she gets the game from her. No, that is actually a different person.
You're right.
Yeah, Winjie, she actually does commit suicide. But
no. Yeah, Winjie's daughter.
That's what he just said. The daughter of.
Oh yeah. I get you.
Okay, so now we're there. The girl who first plays the game is Jin or Lin. I'm pretty sure it's Jin. And then Jack is the guy who's not like a scientist, who's in the group. And then Augie is the one who's
he used to be a scientist, is what they're saying.
Yeah. But he's gone into other businesses.
Yeah, he bailed.
So those 3 people, I think, all conglomerate into the main character of the actual book.
Yep.
So that's one thing. They divided that out. So now there's like individual nuances with different character traits and stuff, which is cool, interesting. It's a brave adaptation, I would say.
Yeah.
To change characters that much is significant.
Well, not to mention all of this takes place in like Britain.
Like London. In 2024. I thought that was cool. I'm glad they did
like that too.
Actual present day. I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
I like that.
I thought that was fun too. But yeah, they
Book's
all have
not that
like
old anyway.
They all have English accents and
yep.
It's really funny because all of it takes place in China in the book. And so, anyways, I thought that was a pretty big difference.
It is, but they did keep
like,
the
they're not all
flashbacks.
Asian. Like, I thought they were, like, that's, like, the book, everyone is Chinese except for, like, the CIA who's coming in to help work and investigate all this stuff.
They kept the flashbacks in China, though, so that the original
which is extremely important.
If they had changed that, I would have been like, okay,
like, come on.
The whole political climate is kind of a big deal, but the first scene, crazy intense.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, scene was probably the most... All the flashbacks were extremely true to the book.
And very well done.
Yeah, very well done. That scene was on point where they're beating her dad to death with the belt.
Terrible.
That is exactly how it happened in the book.
Terrible, but exactly like the book. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight, because we just did a review not too long ago, if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out, of Avatar, and we had very different things to say. Specifically about things like acting and dialogue and... how you don't want to keep things too exact to whether it's a book or an animated series or anything like that. And there were some significant adaptations in this, but one thing I think carried this story is the directors did a fantastic job and the acting was really good.
Yeah.
Like they just did a really good job of playing their characters and embodying those characters from the books. And I think that's rare in the adaptations we see in series. So and that's not my final review. You have to stay to the end of the video for my final review.
As for characters, I will say my one character switch was Dashi, like the police officer.
You love the police officer.
I thought he was great in the book, but in the show, he's pretty good in the show. He's just a different type of character in the show than he is from the book.
He's Wong from Doctor Strange.
Yes, he is.
And I think there's potential there. I think he could still... We've seen the first two. We wanted to make this video with our initial reactions. So that's the exact type of thing we want here. But I do think they left a little bit of potential. He's a good enough actor that he could make it so that he's
I just think he's a little bit more gruff in the book.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Like just kind of just like rough guy. Like he's just like...
Just experienced investigator.
Yeah. And just kind of no nonsense. Guy. But it was also like
Wasn't
he
a military guy in the book?
That
became an investigator, but he had like a lot of military experience.
He may have gotten kicked out of the military, something like that.
And they talk about how he got fired from a bunch of places in the series, but you're right, he doesn't have that like military.
Yeah, like they keep him around because he's a super like street smart investigator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I loved him in the book. I thought he was great. He's
we'll see.
All right.
We'll see if he lives up to that in the series.
The biggest thing I'm trying to do with this show is take a big hint from what you told me you did with Dune.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me he's like, from the very first scene of Dune, I had to like say, okay, this is the movie. That was the book. I'm going to enjoy the movie for what it is, and then I can think about it later. I am trying so hard to do that with the show right now.
It's a smart choice.
Yeah,
because... If you started that way and you're like, why are there 3 characters instead of 1?
Yeah.
Like, that's wild all on its own.
Yep.
There's like weird like love tensions now between characters that should all be one person. Like, it's a little awkward, but we'll make it work, I guess.
Yep.
It's an interesting way to adapt a lot of those things. I think we'll want to get into the game because that's a big part of the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
And they're going very quickly, which means to me, we haven't seen all 8 episodes, but I would expect by the end of the 8, they're out of the first book already.
I looked ahead at the titles of each of them, and the very last title of the very last episode hints at things in the second book, which you have not.
Have you read it?
I've read.
I know you started it.
I've read half of the second book. I've taken a pause for some of the other books that we've been reading right now. I am really liking the second book. We've got to read it, dude. It is so finished reading. It is so good.
If you're new here, we read a ton of books on this channel. We're posting like 2 book reviews every week, so there's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I have not had a chance to dive into. Is it Dark Forest?
Yeah, it's Dark. I think it's Dark Forest. Yeah,
and I need to. I really need to. It's on my list. It's high on my list. But there's 17 other books that are high on my list. Maybe Netflix is gonna be the key that I need to push me over the edge and start reading it.
I know. Maybe we'll read it. Maybe we'll read it as one of our next books.
Let us know if you guys would be interested in that review of the second book and whether that's something we should prioritize.
We probably should. Honestly, I've seen a lot of people comment and say that is one of their favorite out of the whole series of the 3-body book. It's a series as in like a trilogy of books. So
there are people that say the first book is like compared to the second.
I know.
Two,
which the first book was dang good.
I really liked it. Really
liked it. But that's so I want to talk about that comparison. So we talked about flashbacks.
Yep.
And Ya Wenjia, she goes through this horrible experience with her dad, like being murdered.
Horrifying.
For believing in science and believing, like, having his thoughts. But she goes on and has these other horrible experiences where there's water dumped on her in the prison. Yep. I wanted to mention this, though. This is where I thought the show might not have done as well on, is in the show where they're showing her in the prison, in the water, in the interrogation. Yeah. I think they tried to show you how cold it was and why that was such a big deal that she dumped water on her head. But I didn't know if most people would have understood, like, oh, she just dumped water on her head.
They
like,
tried. They talk about, like, oh, the stove's off. You must be freezing in here.
Exactly.
And they dump water. But, like, I think, isn't there a way, cinematography-wise, to just make it look colder?
Yeah, just show her, like, shivering throughout the night and then passing out. Like, that required 5 more seconds of cut.
You don't really recognize the fact that she went unconscious and then she was transported somewhere else.
Yep, for real.
I mean, you kind of get that, like, fuzzy vibe, but you're right. There are some elements that could have been more clear.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing, which I was kind of leading up to before, with her, like, her distaste of the world and everything, I do not think that the show did well enough showing why she decided to contact the aliens. I think I agree. I felt a little cheated by that, because the book, it makes it very clear that she is completely given up on humanity.
I had to specifically explain that to my wife.
Yep.
She was like, what is it? Like, what?
Yeah, like, why would you do that?
She's a little surprised, but I was like, okay, you got to take into account what she's been through. She does not believe that society will survive. She thinks that humanity is a poison, basically.
Yep, and that, like, all humans need to die.
Yep.
Like, and it's that's how she feels.
That's why she says that specifically. I will help you conquer the planet. Like, come on. Like, we're ready.
And I feel like the show, by accidentally went too far on, well, she's just a researcher and she was just really excited to see if her reflection off the sun for the radio waves worked or not. But that's not, like that's what the show was portraying. Like, I'm going to do it anyways. But what the book and what actually was going on there, she just was completely had no hope left in humanity.
I loved how creepy that message was.
Oh, so creepy.
From the Trisolarans. So I've seen a few of the episodes enough to know that they don't call them Trisolarans.
In the show?
Yeah.
Well,
which is a little confusing.
What's because they don't know that yet, what they're called.
No, they don't call them Trisolarans at all. Once you get to that point, they call them Santi.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, how do you know that, though?
I read that.
I read or watched that on, like...
Okay. I love watching this type of video.
Okay.
Like, analysis stuff. And that was one of the big things that they mentioned, is the fact that, like, they're not even called Trisolarans at all.
Oh,
they're
interesting.
called Santi.
Interesting.
So I don't know why that is. I'm excited to discover why. But I will call them Trisolarans because I think that's a cool name.
That's what they call them in the book.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Trisolarans come back and they say, "Do not respond. Do not respond." I'm like, that's so cool. Or do not answer.
So creepy. What did Madeline think? So she had not read the book. So my wife had read the book.
She just finished them, right?
She just finished like a week or two ago. So it was fun to watch it with her. But I'm so curious to know, what did someone think that had not seen the show before at a moment like that?
I think the fact that I had read it, she was not ready for as dark as it was. Because it's not really my vibe typically. But I loved the book. I loved the physics of it. I think that's so awesome. Yeah. And I explained like the game and stuff and how much I like the game.
Does she get the creepy vibe of it? I mean, of course she gets it because it's darker, but like, I don't know. Does she just feel like oh my gosh, like there's like something crazy going on here? Does she get that sense as she's watching it, or? Yeah,
there's definitely an undertone of like what's actually going on here. What's the deal with the aliens? Like, was that even the aliens who responded? So I think she's definitely getting that element of it.
That's cool. Because
we're also very tired when we watch this.
Oh, so. Of course, I'm sure. I'm like throwing this on you. Probably didn't even ask her, but that's the whole time I'm watching this. I'm thinking, how would I be receiving this if I hadn't read the book before? Because the whole time I know what's going on. Yeah. And when they're seeing the flashes in the sky, I'm like, well, that's kind of not how it happened in the book, but I'll accept it.
That's another big one. But I'm like, that is not how it happened at all.
But I was actually okay with that change. That was one of the changes that I was like, you know what? That makes sense because you're
instead of using like the
he had to like put on his like goggles and everything to see like the flickers in space, and so he was the only one who was able to see it. But the show
he had two different research facilities like tune their radio towers.
Yeah, so the first they were able to see the blip in the graph, and then they were able to see that And then he puts on the goggles, and this buddy puts on the goggles too. He's like, I've never seen this happen before, like ever. And so that's cool. But it also, I think, quickly accelerates the timeline of like the whole world just kind of realizing what is going on.
Something's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was good cinema. I thought that was a good cinema move to do. And like for like movies and TV.
I actually have a different opinion of that.
Yeah.
Because I think that adds an element to the story that is too unpredictable to retain the way that the book was written. The reason I say that is because the entire world is now in pandemonium. Like, you can't sweep that under the rug anymore. Okay. The stars just flickered for like 5 minutes over and over again. There's going to be 85,000 recordings of that. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's thinking about it. The world is chaos right now. Like, there's no way that you're just living normal lives after that. Oh, yeah, like... It's basically, they're like, oh, did you see the flicker? Did you catch the Knicks game last night? Like, that's not how that would happen in real life. Every military would scramble. It would be chaos. And I think that they're adding too much. They're adding too much worldwide chaos to the story for us to continue our linear path of the book. So I think that was one thing that I did not like. It was too obvious.
Yeah.
If it had been just like one flicker, and they've been like, well, that's not possible. And like have the physicists freak out about it, but everyone else be like, oh, maybe I just blinked.
Yeah.
But the fact that they made it so intense, I think they might have pushed it too far. That's my opinion, though.
Yeah. I think it's a good opinion. I can't really argue.
We'll see how it goes with just how the world reacts to it. But so far, it's all just been like a Monday morning water cooler conversation. I feel like that's not enough for what it is. So
seriously,
I'm curious to see. You mentioned this. I'm curious to see if anyone listening and commenting is someone who didn't read the book and is watching this for the first time. I really want to hear what your thoughts are, what your impressions of the series are overall, having not read the book. I think it'd be really cool.
Oh, for sure. I want to hear that too. And so the last thing I do want to bring back to, though, is the video game. We've talked about it a couple times. We
went there right at the beginning.
We've tried to go there a few times.
Now we're ready to talk about it.
So much to talk about. But yeah, with that video game, so you were talking about the rehydrate thing.
Yes.
And it was the first way it's portrayed is very creepy when you just see the body laying in the sand and it starts going
crumble. Ugh.
Yeah, it crumbles, but it starts like talking or something, like, or start going like or
it's
some.
So creepy.
It had some moments.
It's too much, and it's a kid. I can't.
No, not that one. There was one before that though. When you like she's walking around, and then she sees a body.
You see a body, but I don't think it says anything.
I thought it did that. Maybe it didn't.
Maybe in your mind it was like a zombie.
I was like, oh! I thought it was doing that because I don't know. Never mind.
I don't think so. But when the girl dehydrates, I was creeped out. I was like,
yeah.
Ugh.
Well, it was really creepy. But what I did appreciate, which I was like, there's no way they're going to do this because the book is super weird when it does this. But they did it. She rolls up the body.
I was thinking that same thing. I told my wife Madeline before, they're like, yeah, and they like roll them up and bring them with them. It's wild.
It's wild.
And they did the same thing in the movie. I'm like, well,
they did it.
It's super creepy.
Yep. And then she like brings the body to the water, and it just like rehydrates and
crazy. But that's how it happens.
I know, it's crazy.
It's a special ability that the Trisolarans have. Like, it's part of their, I guess, their way of
surviving the chaotic eras.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only way they'd be able to survive. And I think one thing that they note that's super important to the game is, I guess, a couple of things. One is at least one person has to survive. And so that they can rehydrate the masses. And when they do rehydrate the masses, they can continue on with civilization from where they were before. Mm-hmm. But if they rehydrate early, and I don't think they mention this nearly well enough, if they rehydrate too early and a chaotic era comes when they're all rehydrated, it could kill them all.
Because they'll burn up.
Yeah, because you have to dehydrate slowly or in order to survive. Mm-hmm. So like if they call to rehydrate everyone and then there's a massive heat wave or a massive freeze and everyone dies, then civilization ends. And they mentioned that at the end in the game where it says, this was the end of Civilization 137. They made it to the Stone Age, or they made it to the Age of Science, or something like that. So the goal of the game, I think, is just to continue progressing society. Yeah. And she made it to level 2 by the end.
Yep.
Right? But now Jack's playing. The goal of the game, now I'm like, are they at the same level? They're like partners? They play together?
I think they're playing in their own worlds.
We'll have to see.
Because he has his own like
headset.
Yeah, he's on headset, but he's like in a world that looks like medieval times, and she's like in a times that looks more like Egyptian and things like that.
they're definitely starting at different times, maybe different seeds.
And I think that's the purpose though, is like they both have to figure it out individually.
Yeah.
And so they have to come up with solutions for the Trisolarans.
I was curious because there's two people playing the game if they were going to end up making it so they could play together. Because it's different. It's already different than the book. So I was curious if they're going to do that.
They could.
We'll see.
Does he talk to anyone in the game like that's outside of the game? In the book,
there's a leaderboard.
There's a leader. I can't remember the leaderboard
because I remember he saw other names.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, I got to be careful so I don't spoil anything for the next book. But yeah, like with thoughts.
Oh, because you've read the next book.
Yeah. I've read half of the next book. But yeah. So all those commenters who said you haven't read the book, I haven't read half of the second book, but I have read the first. Got him.
I haven't read the second book at all. So
yeah.
Overall, first 2 episodes. How do you feel about Netflix's adaptation of the book?
Right now, with first 2 episodes, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Why is that?
Because that is a recommend.
That is the recommend line.
It is the recommend line.
If you're new to the channel again, 7 means we would recommend it to someone else. Anything below that, it's a not recommend.
Yeah, I would not recommend it. It just doesn't convey the same kind of power that like hit you with the same kind of punch that the book does. And like I'm really missing that, and I think it's really tainting my view on the show. And I'm really trying to set it aside, like I said earlier. But that's a big part for me. I think that they just need to make it. I wish they'd made it a little bit more clear on why Wenjia calls the aliens to come to Earth. I think that was a big deal for me that they didn't like quite hit that home. And also, like, I do think it's kind of weird that it's taking place
in London
the whole time. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I'm fine with some of the liberties they've taken. I hope it's good still. Well, I'm excited to see the rest.
So I think it makes a lot of sense. And before I say my official rating of the first 2 episodes, I want to say that I'm expecting the last 6 episodes, which contain all of my favorite parts of the book, to bring this rating up. But I currently have it at a 6.5. The reason for
you looked surprised when I said a 7 that it was that low.
I was surprised when you said 7 because I thought you were going to like it a lot more than me because it's a different style of show that's not really the type of show that I would normally watch.
Yeah.
And that's why I have it so low. So 6.5, and the reason for that is there are a lot of redeeming qualities of Three Body Problem that I'm really excited for the last 6 episodes that I'm expecting to bring my overall rating much higher. But until I see those, and I don't know how they did them, I have to keep it at a 6.5 because creepier than it was when I read the book. When I read all these things, in my mind, it was like basically the dehydration was instant flat Stanley. And you're just like physically a children's book. Yeah. But now when you're seeing it, it's like that was a lot creepier than I had it in my mind. So that's something that is a little off-putting to me. Yeah. And because like
one of the people's eyes gouged out. They didn't have that in the book either.
Yeah. It's just a little darker, a little creepier. So I have it a little lower. I personally wouldn't go out and recommend this based on the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Because of the style of show that I typically watch and I typically enjoy, and because I think the last 6 episodes need to redeem it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the door open for a potential recommend, but it's not there yet.
Well, sounds good. Well, definitely check us out in our next episode where we review the rest of the episodes of Three Body Problem.
We'll see if the 6.5 is redeemed to a recommendation score.
I know. We got to see. So subscribe, check it out, leave a comment to see if you thought the same thing. Let us know if you thought the same thing for the first couple episodes. Let us know if you have read the book or if you haven't and if that influenced what you thought too. We're excited to keep on reading them, or watching them.
See you in the next one.